Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the lecture 9 of Programming Fundamental course. Today we are going to further discuss functions with parameters, and we are going to discuss function prototypes. So there is a lot to discuss inside functions, because functions you are going to write many functions if you if you are a professional software developer. So with that, let us see the outline of today's lecture. We are going to learn how to construct and use void function in a program. We are going to discover the difference between value and a reference parameters, explore reference parameters and value returning functions. We are going to learn about the scope of an identifier. We are going to examine the difference between the local and the global identifiers, which are very important. We will study the static variables, and then we are going to learn about function overloading. We are going to explore function with the default parameters. So with that, let us move on and first discuss void functions. So a void function and a value returning function have similar structures, except the void function will not return any value. It is just going to execute some statements and that's it, and no data, integer, float, boolean, double, etc. will be returned. Both void function and value returning functions have a heading part and a statement part, so they have similar structures. But where is the difference? User defined void functions can be placed either before or after the main function. The program execution always begins with the first statement in the function main. So the main function is the starting point of your program. If you place user defined void function after the function main, you should place a function prototype before the function main. A void function does not have a data type, and so function type in the heading part and the return statement in the body of void function are meaningless. In a void function, you can use the return statement without any value. It is typically used to exit the function early. Void function may or may not have formal parameters. A call to void function is a standalone statement. So with that, let us dig down into the uses of void function. So this is a simple syntax of a void function. Void function without parameters. So we have function name. You can see that the return type is void. It means that it will not return any data. And in this case, we have a void function without any formal parameters. And then the statement of void functions are in this opening and closing curly braces. The word void inside parentheses is optional. In C++, void is a reserved word, so you cannot use it as a user defined word, or you cannot use it for giving a name to a variable. So the syntax for a void function call is you just write the name of the void function. So here we have an example where we print the annual spring sale. But before that, let us first study some basic and easy void functions that you are going to use later on. So this is a program that has one void function called print star. So it will print 2 lines of stars. You can see that the return type is void. Okay, the return type is void, and in this case there are no parameters. So first you execute this program. We include the iostream header file and we use the standard namespace, and then is the function declaration or function prototype or function signature. In this case it is void print star, and then again you write the void keyword because we do not have parameter in this case. But later on you will see many examples where you have a parameter list inside the void function. So then the execution of the program start at the main function, and then first you call the print star function. So here the control will stop here and it will be transferred to this statement where this void print star function will be executed, and it will display 2 lines of asterisks, and then you just print cout annual, and then once again you call the function again. So again the control stops at this point and the control is transferred or transmitted here, where once again you print 2 line of stars, and then you print a spring sale, and this statement is executed, and in the last you once again call the print star. So we call print star 3 times, and each time 2 lines of star will be printed. So let us now see this program. Let us now run it on the code blocks. So I'm going to first start the code blocks. Let me copy this program. Alright, copy, and where is code block? So it is starting, so let us wait, and yes, there we have it. Let me go to the file, new, okay. We have to be a little patient. Console application, select C++, and then I'm going to write void function, and then we have this auto-generated code where we are going to replace it with our own code. So this is our own code, so let me compile it first. So we have no error, which is very good, and let me run it so you can see this output on the screen. So we were able to print this pattern using a void function which is called print star. So with that, let me once again go to our slides, and okay, the statement print star in the function main is a function call. You can replace the function print star by the following function. So you can also use the for loop and the nested for loop inside the print star function. Why? Because it is now easier and more concise, and then obviously loops give you a lot of power and flexibility. So you can replace this print star function with the earlier print start function with this print star function. So with that, very quickly see the time. Okay, we still have a lot of time, so I'm going to go back to the main slide. So now it is your assignment to print the following pattern. So it's a triangle, so you have to print it and then submit this assignment on the Google group. So it's very easy. You can use a function. So first you print 1 star, and then you print 2 star, and then 3 star and 4 stars. So you can take help from the internet, but I'll recommend that first you give it your own try, and then it will be you will have a great confidence in your programming skills. So void function with parameters. So the syntax for void function with parameter is that we still have the void return type, means that it will not return any integer or any other type of data. Then we have function name and formal parameter list, and then we have statements. So the syntax formal parameter list is like we have a data type, and then if possible we can have a reference variable and data type and other reference variable, or if you are not using reference variable, then you can skip this ampersand sign. So how to call a function with a parameter list? You write the function name and then the actual parameter list in parentheses. So syntax actual parameter list is like expression or variable, expression or variable, or whatever you want. So let us see a practical example of how to make a void function with parameters, how to call it and how to write it. So here you can see a function example. It has a void return type, but it has three formal parameter: the variable a, the variable b, and the variable c, which are local to function exp. It means that function exp can only use it. No other function can use it, or no code outside of this function can use this variable. And then we have in the last our reference variable called x. Parameters provide a communication link between the calling function such as main and the call function. They enable functions to manipulate different data each time they are called. So what are value parameters? A formal parameter that receive a copy of a content of corresponding actual parameter. And then we have a reference variable, a formal parameter that receive location memory address of the corresponding actual parameter. So in the first case, a formal parameter that we receive a copy of the content of corresponding actual parameter, whereas in the reference parameter case, a formal parameter receives the location or the memory address of the corresponding actual parameters. When we attach ampersand sign after the data type in the formal parameter list of a function, then the variable following the data types become a reference variable or a reference parameter. So we have another example where we have exp fun function name. It has a void return type, and then you can see one is a value parameter, then two is a reference variable because it is accepting or it is getting the reference of a variable. And then we have a value parameter which is called 3, and then we have a reference variable which is called a 4. So you can even make a combination of value parameters or variable or reference variable, so it's up to you. If a formal parameter is a value parameter, the value of the corresponding actual parameter is copied into the formal parameter. The value parameter has its own copy of the data. So this is important. The value parameter has its own copy. So it has a copy. So these two copies are independent. Changing one will not change the other copy. During program execution, the value parameter manipulates the data stored in its own memory space. If a formal parameter is a reference parameter, so this is now important. If a formal parameter or a formal variable is a reference variable, it receives the address of corresponding actual parameter. A reference parameter stores the address of the corresponding actual parameter. During program execution, to manipulate the data, the address stored in the reference parameter directs it to the memory space of the corresponding actual parameter. So changing one will reflect the change in the other variable because both of these parameters, the reference parameter and the actual parameters, are pointing to the same memory location. So here we have an example. Okay, let me first check out the time. So if we have time, we are going to discuss it, but if we do not have time, then I'm going to stop it for a moment. I think we have some time, so I'm going to discuss it. So let me go to this program. So this program print a triangle of stars. So in the previous case I give you an example, but this is how it works. So first we have a function prototype called void print star. Then it is accepting two values, and these are the value parameter. They are not reference variables, so they only accept the values. So the first one is the int blank, and the second one is the int stars in line. So we are going to print this pyramid or this triangle. Okay, so with that we have the main function. I'm going to discuss it briefly, and then inshallah in the next part of the lecture I'm going to discuss it in detail. We have three variables: number of lines, counter, and number of blanks. And then we display a message to the user: enter the number of star lines from 1 to 20 to be printed. So the user gets this message, and then the user enters the number of lines which is stored in this number of lines variable. So the number of lines, the number of star lines is stored in this number of lines variable. And then, for example, if the number of lines the user enter is less than 0, or remember this is or symbol, or the number of lines are greater than 20, then we have to give a user a message that the number of lines should be between 1 and 20. Enter the number of star lines 1 to 20 to be printed, and then once again we are prompting the user to enter the correct number of lines, and then we go to the next line once time, and then we once again go to the next line. So end line shows going to the next line, so end line, endl, and then in this case we assign for example we have number of lines, and then the number of blanks get the value of 30. So what we do next, we use a for loop and then initialize a counter variable with 1, and then if counter variable is less than or equal to number of lines, we increment the counter. So then we move on, and inside the body of for loop we call the print star function and pass it the number of blanks and the counter value. The counter value initially is 1, whereas the number of blanks initially is 30, and then after calling the function, the control will go to the called function, and we will after the execution of print star function, which is this one, we are going to come back, and this statement will be executed number of blanks, and we are decrementing the number of blanks. First is for 30, then it becomes 29, and then we move on. So this is how the print star works. It accepts the blanks and the star lines. So blank first, in the first case the blanks were 30 and star lines were only 1, because in the first case we are only printing one static, and then we have its own local count variable, and then we are using two for loop. The first for loop prints the space, whereas the second for loops print the static. So I'm going to discuss this example in detail, but for the sake of simplicity, let me just run this program, because it's only after you run a program you understand what is happening at the background or what's happening inside the body of a computer program. So let me create a new project. Let me select a console application, and then number of stars, triangle. So we have this auto generated code. Let me remove it. Let me copy the actual code. So this is the actual code. I'm going to copy it, paste it. Once again, I'm going to go to this program and copy the rest of the code. Copy, paste it over here. I hope everything will go as we expect. And then we also copy the function, which is the print star. So let me copy it, paste it over here. Okay, so let me compile it first. Okay, that's good that we have no. Okay, print the number of lines 1 to 22 we printed. So it's let me enter 3. So you can see that the triangle has been printed. So once again, let me run it. Let me enter 8. So you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 number of lines have been printed. But let me enter 60. Okay, the number of lines should be between 1 and 20. So let me enter 20. So you get this static. So this is what this program does. Let me check out the time. So I think I'll stop here, because this is a large program. We are working on a user defined function, and we are working on void functions that return nothing. So this is that actual function. Initially it prints nothing. So and then we are going to see how it prints the triangle. Inshallah, we are going to discuss this example in detail in the next part of this lecture. So if you have some question, You can ask it on the Google group. I'm going to also share these slides with you. Okay, I'm going to see you in the next part of this lecture. Till then, take care and Allah.